Billy Idol. We won't.
The boys are back. We're here another late night stream. Ein, Boats, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Back by popular demand. Popular demand being Caleb.
Yeah. Well, he's our audience, really. When you think about it.
Yeah, I want you to. We are here, Bulge and I are here to perform for you, Caleb, and I hope you appreciate it.
Well, dance, monkeys, dance. Okay.
Yeah.
So we haven't done. I think the last time we did a stream, like Boats and I were talking beforehand. We haven't done a stream since like the election. So like 6 months ago, we haven't done a stream. We haven't done a stream in like 6 months. So lots been going on. Lots of stuff in the
7
news.
really. It was November, wasn't it? It wasn't December.
Yeah, I guess 7 months.
So it's 7 months. Wow.
More
7
than
months of
half a
news to
year.
catch up on.
And then we had Connor explaining American elections to me.
Fun.
Very politely explaining, like, you have an American accent, Bulge. How the fuck do you not understand this shit? But very politely explaining how states and state votes, or what is it, electoral, whatever. Yeah, it's not important at the moment. The good guys won, presumably.
Yes.
So far, I'm still convinced that the good guys won, at least compared to the other guys. So
We'll see if the good guys won based on Trump's reaction to Israel asking for help. That's when we'll know.
I mean, you say that. I need to remind everyone, despite my accent, I am not actually American. So I am most interested in Trump. Like, okay, Trump should cut off immigration. I think that's actually good for our Latin American countries. I think that's a genuinely good thing, because if, people are so dissatisfied that they'll build up resentment and they'll either vote another way, or there'll be something very violent for, a revolution of some kind for a period, which is sad. People die, not very good, but maybe something good can come out of it. Otherwise, I am actually very concerned about USAID, US aid. That is one of my main concerns, because I don't like America, whom I very much admire, because I speak your fucking language, and I admire all of your writers, and people from Anglo-Saxons who have been there since the 1600s have married into my family, so I very much care about America and love it very much. I don't like it supporting and patronizing gay race communism in my country. I don't like that one bit. It's very because we don't have the money to patronize it, and someone is, and it's not us. So
this gets to something that I was actually thinking about earlier, because I'm curious about, because I know your long-standing nothing ever happens position is sort of under some scrutiny recently. But
not recently.
Well, so,
it was under scrutiny beginning of the year, but
not you're like there's a lot of opinion right now that something might happen or might have happened.
Yes, yeah, they're all wrong, but yeah, but those opinions are floating around.
But that's the question that I had. So like in the Baudrillardian sense, like, okay, like not counting, okay, I saw a thing on the internet, you not being in America, what would have to happen for you to consider any of this a happening? Like, what actually, like, what would actually affect your life to sit there and say, yeah, something has happened? Because I'm trying to, like,
okay,
let's get the USAID is a good example. Like, this is something you actually like might experience it. It's like, okay, yeah, I saw a protest like across the street from wherever, and a lot of like,
not across the street, brother, in my university.
Okay, there you go. Okay, yes. So like literally, like if those just stopped happening, you could sit there and say, okay, like this is actually an impact that has affected me somehow. But whereas like Israel-Iran, like, gas prices might change.
For Israel-Iran, I'll say what has to happen. Boots on the ground in Iran or regime change.
No, so but you say that
boots on the ground can be Israeli. They don't need to be American.
No, but but I'm pointing, like, okay, you hear about boots on the ground. Does anything happen anywhere like within 100 miles of where you live? Like, do you actually see?
Because it actually no. Okay, so here's the indirect or second, third, maybe even like seventh order consequences of it. If America completely commits and there are boots in the ground in Iran, I don't doubt that there will be effects in Latin America in terms of foreign policy. But if Israel completely commits and America doesn't, and there are Israeli boots on the ground in Iran, I also don't doubt that that changes American stance for pretty much my lifetime, at least, regarding foreign policy. If, however, there is also regime change in Iran, I have family in Europe. Most of my stock is European, with some Lebanese and Syrian mixed in. So I have dear friends and family in Europe. I don't doubt their life might change because of that. So, those are my conditions. Those are the three things that I would. Those are at least one of those. I doubt you'd get all three at once, but one of those would certainly at least change my life in a noticeable way.
Because that's like, I was even thinking about it, like unless someone like that I knew directly ended up like being drafted or like ended up getting deployed in like to Tehran or something crazy like that. Or again, like the price of gas being $12 because $12 a gallon because China's trying to buy all of it and isn't getting from Iran anymore. Like I don't know if anything would happen for me, even if like the United States actually put boots on the ground. Like you said, it'd be
Yeah.
these third, fourth, fifth order knock-on effects. Unless there was someone like in my neighborhood, like, oh yeah, I'm shipping off tomorrow to go, you know, invade invade
Invade
Persia.
Tehran.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, honey. Tomorrow, I'm dropping. I'm I'm parachuting into Tehran tomorrow. Sorry, I can't make it to the kids' soccer practice or whatever it is. Yeah. Aside from that, like I really doubt. Like I'm gonna be honest, I'm not American, but I've throughout my whole life since I was born, even before I was born, there was the first Gulf War. I forget when the second was. Uh, but like throughout my entire life, there have been American boots on the ground, in the Middle East throughout my whole life, and Americans at some point stopped caring. So, in a Baudrillardian sense, in a we're making fun of Baudrillard. This is also almost a mockery of the system. But to be fair, his philosophy is more of poetry than a philosophy. So I'm not too scared to abuse it a little. So in the Baudrillardians, there's nothing fucking happened for Americans except 9/11. That's the only thing that happened.
I mean, like that. This is
Which we
sort of a
have to
long
be
way of
honest
saying
about.
I am so much more in that camp than I was even 6 months ago. Like, yeah, like it's 9/11. Something happened, and I don't think I'm not sure anything has happened since.
But to be
Like we
fair,
might be
I'll
going like
say
25 years without it happening.
this: whatever happens now, I doubt something will happen. Something in the Baudrillardian sense. But if something does, and it only concerns America, Israel, and Iran, it will have knock-on effects. You have to remember, 9/11 happened in America, and okay, I get it. Like Caleb hasn't traveled outside of America. I don't know about you, but airport security measures didn't stop at America. It extended to the entire fucking world. The entire protocol for airports, how you deal with airports, airport security, is now the same in the entire world, and it's as tight as it is with TSA in America because of 9/11. America sometimes forget they are the king of the hill when it concerns other countries because you live in it. You live on the top of the hill. It's hard to see the peasants down there, but it is real. People do follow your lead whether they want to or not. And sometimes, at least in the early 2000s, with the neoconservatives in power, I do suspect there was some pressuring to follow certain rules and demands.
Oh, without a doubt, without any doubt.
But yeah, the only time I can fly like without having my asshole checked is a national flight. So that's great. And
Yeah.
even then, it's a crapshoot. Sometimes, you're carrying like a cheese. Are you carrying cheese from France, sir? Why are you carrying cheese from France, sir? And I have to have my asshole checked then. But aside from that, it's pretty good nationally.
That does. I mean, I don't fly, so I have no
we've
idea
left
what the
Caleb
airport's like.
speechless.
I mean, I don't fly, so I have no idea what airport security is
Yeah.
like.
I want to make sure, Caleb. I don't want to scare you. I don't have my asshole fingered every time I fly nationally. That was a hyperbole, as we say in the literary business. That was me exaggerating for comedic effect. But it does sometimes feel like that every time I fly. Like, oh, I'm going to Argentina, and they're like, oh, have you done like 5 to 10 different tests for 5 to 10 different types of flu, now including COVID? So I guess it's 15. It's like, have you done those, sir? It's like, no, I haven't. It's like, well, you're not flying. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm fucking doing it then. And all the TSA business, like, look, I don't remember this, but according to my parents, maybe I, being 80 years old, can testify to this, but it certainly seemed different according to what I've heard from, the older generation. It certainly was different in like
Yeah.
1995
Well,
airports compared to 2003.
I might be able to elucidate a point for this. What was security like with the Wright brothers?
There was no TSA line at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you need to fucking get a running jump off a cliff. The no TSA line before that one.
So,
is that the only current event, or is there anything else?
So
is anything happening, Caleb?
well, nothing's really happening, but I wanted to kind of talk about US aid a bit and the question of either of you guys see Owen McIntyre was an academic agent recently, or academic agent saying on the CRS or the CRV?
I did not know.
What is
No?
the CRV?
Okay,
I have
well,
not watched Academic Agent in a bit.
let me make sure I'm getting the exact description of it right here. I bookmarked it. Yeah, the CRS. The CRS was a community relations program set up under the Civil Rights Act, where they have a lot of security that they can burn their own notes. They don't have to. They can invoke privilege and not to testify. They don't get any. If you send a request for information, they can just deny it. They're required by law to exist by the Civil Rights Act, and one of the things they do is they organize activists to go into black-led protests and make sure they go one direction. They coach families of minority crime how to respond to reporters to make sure they don't drum up any racial hate. They blackmail media by threatening to revoke licenses so they can make sure they put in certain narratives. They're the ones who most likely provided flags and bricks to riots and protesters. It's a government-funded community relations program to control narratives surrounding any kind of racial conflict in America.
Genuine question. Is this
very quick summary of like a 2-hour podcast?
The only surprise there? Send me the link to the podcast later. I'd be interested to hear the details. Academic Agent is usually pretty good, even though he is kind of an ass. I really like Nima Parvini. I have a lot of affection for him, but he's really granular on this stuff. But is this a surprise? The idea that this exists is not a surprise, I think, to anyone. The only thing that surprises me, which is probably the first thing you said about them, is that they are allowed to burn their documents.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
That's the only thing that kind of somewhat shocks me. I would think, much like the CIA and FBI, I forget how long they have until they release the documents, but it'd be like 70 to 80 years or something, right?
Yeah,
Maybe 50.
So it depends. I think a lot of those are like individual things they make exceptions for about how those things that are sealed for X number of years. So I'm a little confused because I didn't hear about this. This is a non-governmental agency, but it has a legislative mandate, or it's a.
No, this is a governmental agency.
What does CSA stand for?
Community relations. Let me make it up here. That community relations service.
So it is a governmental agency. It's officially federal thing.
Yep.
Right?
I believe
Okay.
so. It's. I'm not surprised that it exists. I think we all kind of expected these kind of, especially after finding out what U.S. aid was doing around the world. I don't think anyone's really surprised by this revelation, but it is interesting because one of the guys who wrote a book about all the things they've done and published it, and so we have firsthand accounts of his stories of what they've done throughout their existence, and it's batshit crazy. Some of the things they're doing, I mean, it was always a question of, was it George Soros, private companies, actual underground movement, or government supported movements? And this kind of answers the question that a lot of it is just top down.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Hein.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, we've known it was top down, and it's always been government money. Because I think I think Elon Musk had a tweet recently about sort of the genius of George Soros was investing $1 million to get the government to give you $100 million for your activism. But so it's not surprising at all that there's government money that's funding these things, that it seems so overt. Like, this is literally like it's a branch of the State Department. Like, usually the typical way this goes is there'll be money allocated for $10 million for community building, and that will get granted to some nonprofit that has some private characteristics.
Yeah.
So they can do these things without it just being, this is government action. But it looks like the CRS is just actually.
But
it's part of the Department of State. It's part of the Justice Department, which is insane.
You're probably correct. I don't know what department it is under, but
state
on the budget, I assume it's state. It sounds like
the Justice Department. Sorry, Justice Department.
Is it? I don't know if it's Justice or State, but on the budget, when when the congressmen sign off on the budget, it probably does show up as community building. I mean, you have to remember, because of the Manhattan Project. I mean, Caleb has already mentioned that they're allowed to fucking burn their documents, which is so funny. I mean, if that doesn't vindicate the Steve Saylor view of IQ and community, I don't know what does. But if you're allowed to burn their documents, you have to remember the Manhattan Project was listed on, because it was top secret. It was listed on the budget as additional warfare material or something like that, or is buying additional something for war. That's how it was listed. There were, I think, 2 or maybe 4 to 4 congressmen, half Democrat, half Republican. I forget if it was 2 or 4, which were privy to the information. But aside from that, I don't doubt that it was very much listed as what you describe as community building or whatever.
Sure, but this is the one other interesting happening. I thought the successive timing of things. This is and this always sort of happens under Trump, is we get 75 things in the news at once over the course of 3 days.
Flooding the zone, I think.
Stephen Miller.
It's very effective.
Look, I'm not going insane. I need to check this if you get Stephen Miller did retweet an alt-right anime Avi Soldianav, right? He did retweet the guy I follow, right? He did. I
didn't see this, but I'll believe you.
I'm pretty sure, unless I'm going completely insane, that happened. And there was a tweet which was so good, which was there's 3 different types of tweet from a Trump administration. There's Trump, where he's making fun of someone. There's JD Vance, where I love my family so much, I love my wife so much, I love my country. And then Stephen Miller, we need to kill so many fucking people, dude. I'm gonna kill so many. I'm gonna kill 100 million people in the next year. Right, I'm starting right now.
I'm surprised there isn't a right-wing meme with just a Stephen Miller face with just millions written under it. There's a very stern-looking Stephen Miller and millions.
And it's even funnier because in 2016 he was a single, and there was this really funny excerpt from an interview where he apologized for being so I suppose blunt and somewhat rude, where he said something to the effect, I may be paraphrasing, but I think this is a direct quote. Like, I apologize. This is all I have. This is my entire life. And now he's like married with 3 kids, and he's still completely insane about it, which is so funny to me. It's
real.
like, yeah, thank you, Mr. Miller. Like, I'm saluting you right now. Just never give up. 100% dedicated to the job. Just going up to, I forget where it was. He just walked up to an office. He's like, "You're not deporting enough. Like, what are you fucking doing here? You think this is a joke?" Just fucking telling people off. And
Incredible.
it's so funny, dude. Oh, I love him so much. I love a little Jewish man.
But see, it was crazy to me because I think it's probably only been like a week or like 10 days that everything in the states at least was about the big beautiful bill and Thomas
Oh,
Massey
yeah.
and Rand Paul going out against it, and then the LA riots started, and I thought it was such a amazing like bit of framing that suddenly like being against they associated being against that random $1 trillion bill with being like pro-immigration. And immediately, like clearly, Thomas Massey and Rand Paul must want more immigrants because they're not voting for this bill. And it was just like this beautiful frame job. And then 24 hours later, Israel's bombing Iran, and everyone's forgotten about it completely, and none of it matters. It's like Seattle's on fire. It's like it's a footnote on like page 12 of the
Yeah.
New York Post.
I have to ask you, Ryan, because you're like 90 years old. Did the 1992 LA riots also have like a bill, like a big bill? Was it Bill Clinton? I forget who must have been the president in 92. But was there also like a big bill, or like maybe a Monica Lewinsky scandal, or a bombing of a hospital somewhere in the fucking Middle East that happened like a month earlier?
Because it would have been like the end of the Bush the Bush senior administration would have been 92.
Okay.
I know Clinton like started bombing Yugoslavia to get Lewinsky out of the news, but I think I don't know if the LA
Oh
riots
yeah,
were
that was.
distraction
I
from
think that
anything.
was somewhat explicit. I remember reading.
Those literally it's like we need to
interview-
start dropping some bombs.
Yeah.
They start talking about my personal life. I don't think those LA riots. I mean, again, I don't remember that clearly. I was, it was back in my 60s.
Yeah, you were still senile back then, but you got your mind back together.
I don't know if it was to get anything else out of the headlines that I can recall. But like I don't know. And the other thing is so crazy because this sort of seemed like it came out of nowhere because there was like LA was on fire, I feel like Seattle's on fire every other week anyways, but like these like big city riots.
Mm-hmm.
And this weekend they've got like these 80-year-old boomers like picketing around like state houses or like the middle of nowhere. Like my town had a like No Kings protest, and it was like 50 sexagenarians.
I want to actually talk about
You
the
guys
No
need
Kings
to explain
protest
to
real
me what
quick.
the fuck does No Kings
Okay,
mean?
so the No
I have
Kings
no idea.
protest is a bunch of liberals are protesting Donald Trump wanting to be a monarch. And so they are protesting against Trump's executive authority by saying he wants to be a king. We're going to protest not having kings in America.
Nigga, you're like 90 years too late. The Roosevelt presidency has come and gone. Well, the FDR, I guess there's been a Teddy Roosevelt before.
No,
But the FDR presidency has come and gone. Like, it's over. You're done.
I'm just trying to imagine like the
lost.
panic meeting in like whatever liberal war room. Like, okay, like no one is supporting the Mexicans burning flags in LA. Like, we need to rebrand quick. What do we do? What do we do? And some like 23-year-old blue-haired intern is like, we don't like kings. Maybe no kings. Like, I feel like this was entire thing, like from conception to implementation to actually getting people on the ground, like waving picket signs, took like 72 hours.
I
will say
we
this.
We need to rebrand quick.
It's very important to me, or at least very funny to me, that like one of the favorite lib musicals of the last 10 years or so is Hamilton. And look, you guys can correct me on my history. I've only read like 50 pages of the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, but I'm pretty sure Alexander Hamilton was like, yeah, we should definitely have an American king in everything but name.
Pretty
Like
much.
that's definitely a thing we should have, and it's honestly pretty cool. My only problem was taxation without representation, and we're so far away. We're a colony. I want to be like a proper country. And actually, kings are awesome, dude. We should do that, but like for us, I don't know. I feel like that's part of America, and the libs love it apparently.
I gotta
and
say
they
that
rap
is
about it or
that
something.
is the worst part about the Hamilton musical. Is Hamilton's actually a really cool and funny founding father, and they made him so gay. Despite if you even say, "Oh, I like Hamilton," it's like, "Oh, the musical." It's like, "Oh God." I mean, quick Hamilton story. When Thomas Jefferson had 3 giant portraits in his house of like John Locke, Immanuel Kant, not Kant, it was Locke. It was Locke. It was Francis Bacon, I think. It was like those Enlightenment era
That
philosophers.
makes sense.
And he said these are like the 3 best people in history. And Alexander Hamilton was like, "You forgot Julius Caesar. He is the best person in history." You have to
Based.
have that kind of exactly incredible.
I will say this though, dying in a duel invalidates every single one of his arguments. I'm sorry. Like I've never read a single word Aaron Burr has ever written, but I would take like whenever he contradicts Hamilton, I would say, yeah, Burr is right. He fucking killed him. Like,
I
what
know,
am I gonna do? Like,
know
what am I
trauma
gonna
co-
say? He
Trial
won.
by
but-
combat might be the best standard of justice I can imagine.
Yeah, like what? Like what can I say to that? Like, yeah, this dude like shot this guy in a fair duel. He
So yeah,
didn't
they
like,
had a disagreement. One guy shot the other one. He won the disagreement. Like the argument's over.
but he didn't shoot him like a Luigi Mangione did, where he like got like we sneaked up on the CEO and shot him in the back 3 times. Like, no, this is an agreed upon duel. Both parties had firearms. Both parties were aware. Both parties had seconds. And Aaron Burr won. It's like, okay, like it's over, dude. I guess like I don't even know if Aaron Burr was a Federalist or anti-Federalist, but whatever faction he was with, like won the argument for me. Like it's over. Like I don't care what anyone else has to say.
True. I
Caleb, get
was
us back on the rails. This has gone a little. We're
Well,
losing.
Fizz
speaking of
has
Aaron
gone
Burr,
a little bit
speaking
off
of
the
Aaron
rails.
Burr, I was gonna point out Thomas DiLorenzo had a hat he used to wear, like the Aaron Burr Club or the Aaron Burr Society, when the slogan was "Burr said to start sooner." DiLorenzo, I'm so every time I read him, I'm like I read his stuff on the Confederacy. I'm like, this is my guy. He's so awesome. And I read anything else, I'm like, he's just a libertarian boomer.
He is the best libertarian boomer in existence. But yes,
He's up there with
That is-
Rockwell. They are
That is the entire
great.
problem with every guy associated with Mises.org. When you compare them to the original Austrians like Gottfried Haberler, Friedrich Wieser, Eugen von Bombever, Karl Menger. Karl Menger was a fucking tutor to the Prince of Austria, if I remember correctly. God, he didn't fucking hate monarchy, far from it. Even Schumpeter, who was sort of a, enfant terrible of the Austrian school. I mean, there's many others I'm forgetting, but the original Austrian school and the members of it, one, didn't see themselves as separate from mainstream economics. They very much engage with it. You just need to read Wieser. He references Jevons and Marshall all the time. He's very admiring of them, and he's consciously, at least in his mind, building upon their work and summarizing it and correcting it when it goes wrong. But aside from that, it's very much like, his entire for Wieser is especially interesting because he's a member of the Italian elite school. People forget this because no one reads his book, The Laws of Power. He sort of gave up on economics in the latter period of his life. It's like, yeah, my students will do shit about this. Like, I don't care about this anymore. Politics is more important. And he very much became an Italian elite school theorist. It's where he's very much concerned about the health of a nation. Even reading social economics, it's very telling that contrary to Rothbard and even Mises most of the time, his first example of economics is not Robinson Crusoe, I suppose in English, Robinson Crusoe on an island. isolated. How does he economize? His first example is, how does a simple nation economize? He calls it simple because he has several assumptions, and then he expands from there. But he very much says, unless you're degenerate, or unless there are degenerate members of your nation, this will not happen, or this, or there will not be excess, or this or that. And you need to curb this with like political programs. He's like and it's like casually mentioned. It's not like it's not like, oh, there's a chapter on like curbing politically unwanted things or degenerate things. No, it's like casually mentioned. It's like, yeah, you will probably have a few degenerate members of your population. Maybe you can curb them this way or that way. And also, this is a guy that invented the idea of opportunity cost. So he's very much in the mainstream economics pantheon, despite being forgotten by name.
Well, he sounds pretty great. Those are all great points. I would say one thing I wanted to get back to on the No Kings protest and how it was all old people. Clearly, how do I put this? How many of those old people you think were just kind of picked up in nursing homes by activists and were trotted out there to be props?
So I'm sure there is some of that. I think you have such a natural base of boomers that want to be that they've been sort of stewing in their Trump derangement syndrome for the last 6-7 months, and like there's a chance for them to do something, and it's something that bears no real risk. It will score them brownie points, like they get to show off to their friends that, hey, I did this. I think there was a lot of genuine grassroots interest in a completely meaningless statement today. Like I think there's it just seems so perfectly suited to the boomer liberal mentality. Like were there paid people? Probably not. It wasn't nearly like you see for the bigger and more violent things from last week. I think there was some actual. It was organized top down, certainly, but I think that the interest in it was probably pretty organic. Just because
I do agree with Ein of the not the boomers. I don't want to. I slander the boomers a lot, but it's not the whole generation. There's certainly a segment of that generation that is pretty much like the French. They like to protest. Maybe they got their sign. Someone paid for their signs. Someone, some guy from the Community Relations Service, the CRS, went to the printer and printed out all their signs so it looked nice or whatever. But I do suspect that it's mostly organic. There is a segment of the population that likes to protest, even when it's futile. It's almost like a fulfilling thing. That's what fulfills them, in a sense. I remember seeing a Twitter picture not so long ago where it was of not even a boomer. I think he's like 80 years old. Are the boomers 80 years old? Man,
they're not 80 years old yet. No.
Yeah, so it's like something.
Old boomers are close, aren't they? Jeez.
But they're close to it. They're like 60 or 60 to 70, I think. So it was like a picture of this guy, and someone interviewed him, and it was just him on a wheelchair, and he said something. I've been protesting to close to like 40 years or whatever for like different causes, and it was just him holding a sign up on on a street on a wheelchair. So I do think there is organic support for these things.
I think we use boomer a little too loosely. I think there's a big Gen X liberal contingent as well. Like the 50 I guess they're like probably in their 50s now, late 40s, 50s, 60s on up. Like you've got plenty of people that are perfectly stable in their adult lives who need some way to vent the anger that they've been fed for the last.
That's a point I want to make real quick is obviously the difference between boomers and Gen Xers, but speaking of like mentality or vibe or things like that, I can't really figure out what's it made with like you could kind of tell Zoomers and Alphas apart when they talk or when they communicate their interests. When it comes to Gen X and Boomers, what really is the key difference besides AIDS? Like they just seem very similar to me. Like when the Boomers died, Gen X would just be the next level of just be the boomers at that time. You know, I can't figure out what the difference is.
I think sort of politically and sort of their worldview, it's sort of moved that way. I would say Gen X is if anything, even a little bit more selfish than the boomers. Like they're a little bit more generation me. In term and they probably think they're smarter than the boomers think they are. Like there is a I think Gen X has more of that, like, you know, thinks that they are sort of enlightened in a way that they would look down on older and younger generations, where boomers just sort of get old and shake their stick about the way things used to be. Gen X still sort of considers themselves rebellious in a way that is not really, probably was never really accurate. But yeah, I think they see themselves as edgier than boomers see themselves as.
Now that just sounds more like a millennial thing to me. You know, the believing they're on the edge when they're on the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, like I think they've aged out of it, but like, you know, Generation X was like, you know, the MTV generation, right? Like they came up with things that were sort of, you know, that were
I'm
trying to
show my use here. What exactly is MTV?
Oh, you people are babies. It's embarrassing. So back in we lost Bulge.
Oh, we lost him.
Back 50 years ago, okay, we had this thing called television, and you actually watched like different stations. It wasn't just on Netflix.
Really?
And one of these was entirely for music. Except it wasn't music. It was like Celebrity Deathmatch and
like the music channels. Like
commercials.
you get really high up, and is this, you know, the music channels, or is it like this? Like, I'm looking it up here. What kind of shows were they playing music videos? What?
Mostly commercials, as I recall. And then, like, let's see, Real World, Daria, Celebrity Deathmatch. Occasionally they would do music videos, but it was very little music by the time you get into the late 80s, early 90s.
I'm looking through it. I recognize like faces and images, but I'm not really. Yeah, before my time. Okay. See, I don't know why my brain. I always got MTV and TMZ confused. I kind of assumed they were the same thing.
MTV and TMZ are different things.
Yeah, I know that now, but for a while I'm like, that's kind of the same thing. Oh, we got Bodes back.
I'm back.
I've never thought I was going to explain what MTV was before, but that's where we are now.
Yeah.
I am aware of MTV. The Caleb needed to explain it to him.
Well, he wasn't sure. He confused it with TMZ, and I think we can just leave that there.
Yeah,
that's a pretty bad confusion.
Anyways, yes, that's what I think boomers have just sort of, or Gen X has sort of become boomers, but they I don't think they've aged as gracefully as boomers, and they will not age as gracefully as boomers. Like they will be angrier as they get older than I think boomers were.
I'll say this: I have two comments. One, Gen X figures themselves more independent thinkers than boomers. They're not. Two, boomers love their television. Oh my God! If CNN says something bad about Trump or how Trump handled something, or how Vance whatever, my God, they will let you know. With all of their powers, they will make sure to let you know and how upset they are at it. But they don't make bones of making themselves peer independent thinkers. You know, they're not gonna we're not gonna quarrel about it. Like, ooh, I'm so independent or whatever. They don't really. It's not in their minds as far as my interactions with them.
Yeah, boomers are anti-Baudralardian as can be. Like if it happened on TV, it happened. Like reality is what was on TV.
Yes, and that's why I do recognize that part, because I can see all my boomer relatives.
So are Gen Xers, but they refuse to acknowledge it.
I can see my older family members, cousins, and uncles and stuff just getting one-shotted by AI slop on Facebook. It's the funniest thing to watch, honestly. It is. Like my grandpa back, Caleb, why don't you have a girl yet? There's so many hot women on Facebook, and just show me his feed. I'm like, those are all AI women. None of those are real.
None of those people exist.
Those are all fake people, Pop.
Well, that goes back to the thing from earlier. Like, okay, like if you okay, we see missiles striking whatever city in Israel. Like that could not be more like less happening now than ever. It is less of a happening now than it ever was before, because it's like, okay, a video means literally nothing. Like you could show me a video of anything, and it doesn't mean it happened in a way that was that is more true than it's ever been.
Oh yeah, no, it's completely useless. Which is so funny. Like all of visual media, like unless there is someone whom you trust, and they're on the ground, and then they write something. Like even the video is not trustworthy because maybe someone else uploaded it with their likeness. Unless they write something on their own account and they're there and you trust them because they've proven themselves trustworthy in some way or another just by being a good reporter, there is no reason to trust pretty much any information.
I saw there was this is a little bit of an older idea, but I remember someone was talking about like blockchain technologies and all these sort of like trustless things that we're developing. And their big point is like, no, the direction this needs to go is not that we develop systems that don't need trust, is we develop systems that require deep trust, and we develop institutions that are trustworthy. Like, and because that's what it's going to come down to is if you there's people that have a reputation, and you can understand like, yes, I've because of my personal experience with this individual, or because I've seen the work they've done previously, I trust this individual. And there's people that aren't like that, and that's going to be the real differentiator between whether or not something should be believed or not, because there's the standards of truth, especially digitally, are just vanishing completely.
Well, we talked about politics about 40 minutes. Let's talk some philosophy. So
Okay,
recently I've had to read Hume for the first time
what did you read?
on miracles.
Oh boy.
And I have never hated a author more.
Have you
It's
ever read
bad.
Anscombe's review of On Miracles?
I've tried to find it. I haven't. I've looked
It's
for it.
I believe it's I believe it's the first essay in Faith on a Hard Ground, or Faith in a Hard Ground,
Okay.
or
I'll
maybe
write
the
that down.
second. It is on Anna's Archive or LibGen. If you can't find it, I will send it to you. I have it downloaded, but it is worth reading because her first paragraph is like, every human acknowledges this is the most embarrassing thing for a human that he wrote this. It is incredibly embarrassing even by atheist standards,
It's so bad.
because On Miracles is like, it's in a longer book. It's not a standalone essay, if I remember, or a pamphlet. And in the very next like chapter, he contradicts himself, because you have to remember Hume is a guy who very much is skeptical of causality, and his whole argument against miracles is because of causality. And so, like, it just doesn't really compute. It's a very much sophistical.
Yes. Hume,
But
the mere
it
brilliant
does
sophist.
bring up valid points for Christian apologists to apologize for, even if we're like, no, the Humean system is obviously sophistical, and this guy is just trying to justify his own. He's very much a creature that is described by his systems in some way. He is a slave to his passions, less so than he would think, because he's a better person if you read read biographies of him, then you'd be led to believe.
Yes, he is.
And
The great example of that is he took in Rousseau, and only a
yeah, that would be my
only a
example
saint-
too.
only
I
a
was gonna
saint
go
would
to
care for
that.
that frog.
Like,
I mean-
he regretted it deeply, because Rousseau, I think, threatened to murder him several times because he was paranoid, and one time threatened him with a knife in his own home. So he regretted it deeply, but he was and he was very shocked that the French declared themselves atheist, because he very much viewed himself as an agnostic, as a skeptic. And when all the French philosophers he met declared themselves atheist, he was weirded out, and it was like, get me the fuck out of here. These people are insane. Which only makes the case that, like, yeah, you can only do that in like a Christian culture. I suppose a Christian fucking Presbyterian culture, because I think the Kirk of Scotland was Presbyterian. I forget. Is it Knox? Was it Ronald something Knox, right? who
I was
was
gonna say,
the founder of Kirk of Scotland. But
I don't know. No, I was gonna say, I read Father Cobbleton on Hume, like his biography of Hume. It's very interesting. Hume seems like a very interesting figure, where he was writing, how he got started writing. It's so interesting. He seems like an interesting figure. But his on Miracle, I mean, the teacher was going over it, the professor was, and I just remember I have like 2 pages of notes just complaining to myself about how stupid his definition is of a miracle. It's yeah. Anyway, I've had to read Hume, I've had to read Descartes, and it's just I've never been more thankful for Jacques Maritain. After reading Rene Descartes' Meditations, I'm like, yeah, thank God for Maritain.
I'm gonna try to find it right now because it's so funny how Anscombe describes him. But
Well,
yeah,
while
go ahead.
While
Give
you're
me a
looking for
minute.
that, I find it. I think it's as frustrating as it is, though. Okay, like it's really useful to read those people because, like Maritain has pointed out, Descartes is very much the basis for where like philosophy goes horribly, horribly, horribly wrong. Like
Yes.
like so many people since him and Hume like will point back to their stuff, or will draw inspiration or build off of what they did.
Mhm.
So really, like you are studying like really important foundations for bad philosophy. That's
Yeah.
ultimately what it is.
I'm definitely enjoying how I put this. I'm enjoying. It's not like I'm going to read St. Thomas when I'm reading. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm learning great things. I am reading it, and it's more when I read Hume or Descartes, it's more like I'm enjoying the conflict. When I read an idea, and going, well, that's dumb, and figuring out why.
And like it treated like it's like a history class, right? Like you're learning the history of philosophy. You're not learning any real philosophy. You're learning a
Yeah,
history
well, that's really what this class has
of
been.
something of thought. Yeah.
Yeah, because this class has been like, I understand how to put this. It's an introduction to philosophy class at a recent, until like 2 years ago, community college. So I wasn't expecting anything crazy. But the biggest pet peeve for me has been it's all quizzes, and I don't think I'm fine with a quiz for most things. I feel like philosophy shouldn't be a quiz. You know,
No,
like it should be something written at least, or something discussed rather than basic memorization of things the teacher has said.
Yeah, let me I found it. It's chapter 4 of Faith on a Hard Ground by Anscombe. Hume on Miracles. There's a whole essay dedicated to it. I'll just read the first paragraph. Probably not even all of it. Hume's chapter, or as it is often called, essay on miracles, has the fame of a little masterpiece among those of a general public who will have heard of it, or may even have read it, and don't dislike its conclusions. While among those who do dislike its conclusions, it gets the adjective notorious. It ostensibly sets out to give the wise and learned an argument which will forever arm them against any defense of religion, any argument purporting to establish a religion which appeals to miracles and equally to prophecies, the fulfillment of which Hume considers to be also a sort of miracle. But if we restrict the title wise and learned to people who've looked into Hume's argument strictly, or as philosophers at least, we find that those who like his outlook often appear to be much embarrassed. Anthony Flew, for example, in his chapter on the subject, Hume's Philosophy of Belief, and as I understand from A.E. Taylor, T.H. Huxley, and A.E. Taylor and T.H. Huxley, while a man who appears to be merely dispassionate, C.D. Broad, simply makes mincemeat of the argument as unreasonable in itself, and as in any case inconsistent with Hume's philosophic position. Indeed, it seems from the judgment of such wise and learned men to have been a correct instinct which makes of this chapter of Hume's Inquiry a separable essay. Then she goes on to tear it apart, like in every sort of way. I will send this this book to you. It's chapter 4, Hume on Miracles. It's very, very good.
I can't wait. What I have read from Anscombe, I've really enjoyed.
She's a hard read, though, man. Like compared to her husband, holy
Yeah,
shit.
Geets is it's just one of my favorite Substacks we ever published has been your the essay on Geets. It's such a simple explanation of the reality of
I will say that
good
is the
human
simplest thing that Geach ever fucking published in his entire life, aside from some comments from his Gifford lectures on the virtues. And even then, there are some incredibly hard parts if you're thinking hard about it, because again, this is transcriptions of a lecture. But his books on logic are hard. Like, make no mistake of this. This is a guy who was a logician first and foremost,
Mhm.
as well as a Thomist. But he has like two or three books on logic. They're pretty hard. But when it comes to explaining things to a general audience, he's either much better than his wife or much more, I don't know, geared towards doing it. Anscombe certainly wasn't writing for the masses at any point in her life. Except there's a few essays here which were lectures she gave or speeches she gave, like on contraception. She has a speech on Humanae Vitae, which is just her kind of cheerleading it. Because before, was it Humanae Vitae? I forget what proclamation or encyclical, which was like, yeah, contraception is wrong, by the way. Because she was saying contraception is wrong, by the way, according to Catholic teaching before that encyclical. And then she sort of just cheerleading it in a speech. And it's like, yeah, obviously it's wrong. And now I'm going to explain all the reasons it's fucking wrong according to Catholic doctrine. Disregarding the encyclical, but I'm just gonna use that as like a final nail in the coffin. But yeah, no, she's great. She's very adorable in a weird way. I really like Anscombe.
So the other thing about the class that has been insane to me, at least, is how do I put this nicely? I wasn't expecting a lot from my fellow students, and I'm still shocked. Is the best way to put it, I think. The meanest way is they're all just fucking retarded.
Yeah, of
so
course.
stupid. I mean, we spend the class goes from 5:30 to 8:30. Okay, it's a long class. We get like a 15-minute break in the middle of it. But most of the class is spent with the professor will say a word, and he'll spend 15 minutes trying to get them to understand what that word means. It's not even a complicated word. Like, we spent 30 minutes where he tried to explain what beholder meant in this phrase, the eye of the beholder. And they weren't getting it.
That's terrifying. How big's the class?
About 20 people.
Oh, that's even worse. If it was like 100 people, I get it. But like, holy shit.
It's just
what often will happen, to try and give them a little bit of credit. It's an intro to philosophy class. There are going to be 0 majors in there that are doing anything with philosophy. Like, it's going to be like they have a social science credit they need to fill, so they're taking that class. They don't want to be there. They've heard it's an easy A or an easy pass, and they are just completely checked out.
To be fair, it's still pretty bad that you don't understand Eye of the Beholder.
Oh, I'm sure it's terrible, but it's also a willful ignorance. Like, they just don't care enough to think about it, and they're
we definitely have that.
Because like, if I never heard the phrase, or not even the phrase, the word beholder, and someone explained to me, oh, it's, you see something, imagine it, you like behold something, you're sort of holding it in your mind,
Yeah, he had to explain objective and subjective.
Oof. I kind of get that, because you might need to like delineate that more clearly in philosophy, but than it is in colloquial speech. But still, it is rough.
I will say, when the first class started, I really disliked the professor, but as the class has gone on, he is hilarious. He spent 30 minutes last class arguing with 3 of the women about the man versus bear question from TikTok. And he was just like, are all men really that bad? You think we're all awful? Really? You think he was very snarky and aggressive towards them. Here's a great example. The guy in the class, he sits down, puts his headphones in, goes through TikTok for the entire class. He's been there every time, but he's been marked absent every time because when the teacher, asks who's, he doesn't raise his hand or anything. And last time, the professor said, I can't remember the guy's name. He's like, said his name. Why would he come to class? Is what he was saying. Like, who said to just throw something at him and ask people to raise their hands? Who said was? And he started yelling. Who said was to burn him alive? Like he yelled that loudly at the guy. The guy's still scrolling TikTok.
Yeah, okay, he's won me over.
Yeah. Like some girl was trying to leave class early. He goes, extra credit for whoever tackles her to get her to stay longer. like he's a very funny guy. Yeah, okay, so we got about a few more minutes before we got to wrap it up for the hour. Last topic we have. Thoughts on Pope Leo, boys. What are we thinking? How are we feeling about the new Pope? I'm loving him.
I haven't heard much from him since the 2 weeks of his inauguration, but aside from that, I'm pretty optimistic. I quite like him.
I think one of the things people were talking about beforehand, like, what do you want from the new Pope? Blah blah blah. One of the things was just like let's get the Pope out of the headlines for a little bit. So the fact that we haven't heard anything since the first 2 weeks, I think, is a huge plus.
Yes.
Like he's doing his
I will
thing.
say,
Whatever's happening under the go ahead.
There was obviously a talk with one of his brothers.
Yes.
Obviously,
The brothers cracked me up.
That was
that
those 2 weeks were so
obviously
funny.
happened.
Those 2 weeks was so great.
Dude, that was really, dude, if I was the Pope and I was like talking to my brother, like, I messaged him and said, why don't you respond? And then his first thing was, you're live. And then there's a silence of 10 seconds. I'd be like, why don't you come over to Rome? Maybe we need to have a talk. Right
I
now.
love the idea that like members of the Swiss Guard just like showed up at the brother's house like mafia style. It's like, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have a very comfortable life, and you're never gonna talk to a reporter ever again.
You're gonna get
go
a
great.
beautiful Italian mansion.
You're a made man. Just shut your mouth.
But we need you to shut the fuck up right now, because it's so funny, because Benedict didn't have brothers, or if he did, they weren't alive. Same for John Paul II. Same for Francis. Maybe he was an only child. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, the sister.
Yeah, but was she alive?
Yep.
She certainly wasn't in the news much.
Yeah.
It's like we've never seen the Pope have an extended family that is very much active, alive, speaks English, speaks English natively. So that's like a fifth point. It's very funny, and can be on the news cycle whenever they want, whenever the Pope says or does anything. That has to be rough, man.
I mean, like they need to be silent. Like I said, like it needs to be like a mafia style. Like, yep, you're not talking anymore, one way or another. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. That literally is what needs to happen if it hasn't already.
I would say some of the early interviews were when one of your brothers talked about how he threw his brother down the stairs. The reporter was like, "You threw the Pope down the stairs." He wasn't the Pope at the time. Like, he's very quick to say that. It was so
he wasn't the Pope at the time. Yeah, which is so true. Would be my exact same reaction. He wasn't the Pope at the time. Was I supposed to do? Not throw him down the stairs? Like, what do you mean?
Anyway, listen, I love the how to put this. The name choice, Pope Leo XIV, and the fact that he mentioned the dangers of AI, and he took Pope Leo XIV because Pope Leo XIII was writing during was Pope during the Industrial Revolution. It's like, okay, these are all great signs. I love these signs.
I love the direction he seems to have set. He's had some. He was talking on it. I think it was with regard to some of the Eastern rites and like the beauty in their liturgy.
Yes,
so just like the way he was talking about like solemn silence and just reverence in the mass and just like the quiet and the stillness that the mass offers versus the rest of the world. I thought it was just beautiful. Like he gets the sort of, like, I wouldn't necessarily call him a traditionalist for a Catholic, but like he very much has the perspective on like there is something unique and holy that we shouldn't veer too far from. And he's eloquent in a way that we have not heard. We do like love Francis. Francis was a good man. There were so many times there'd be a soundbite, and because of translation issues, because of media reporting, but like you'd have to like, okay, like
and also
this
he
is
was a bit provocative.
Yes,
Let's
like,
also
you-
say
you-
that. He was a
there-
provocative Argentinian ex-bouncer uncle who had a mafia-style mentality, because you can search up when he was bishop. But he
to
very
bully
much
factions,
was
too.
like, I value loyalty. I'm gonna be provocative for this or that issue.
But,
And
like,
that maybe didn't translate well into English.
and there'd be sound bites, and you'd have to sort of explain them or apologize for. It's like, well, like what he like, this isn't conflicting with Catholic teaching. Like this is what he actually means. Here's the interesting, and like so far with Leo, it's like, yeah, what he said. Like there's nothing. I have nothing to add. Nothing I need to clarify. Like just everything he said so far. It's just like yes, that
That
that's
exact
good.
like reason that whole case is exactly one of the reasons I think they chose an American. They wanted someone who could communicate to Westerners in an easy way. But
I
anyway,
will
yeah,
say this: is he also the second? I think he's the second ever pope elected from a religious order, because he's an Augustinian. He was the general prior of the Augustinians, right?
that
Was
might-
he? I
Or
did
the
not.
something
If
general.
he
I
was,
don't know,
I think he would be the second because I know that sounds right. I think he might be.
Because Francis was a Jesuit, but there's been no Jesuit popes before.
Francis
I
was
know
definitely the
there's
first
been
Jesuit.
no Augustinian popes before. There's been no Franciscan popes, and there's been no Dominican popes. So unless I'm missing a Benedictine somewhere, or
It looks like there have been some. Hold on a second.
I might be
There
wrong.
might have been some Dominicans.
There might there might have been. He's certainly the first second in a row we got. I think he's the first Augustinian for sure, right? Unless
looking
I'm
into it.
really wrong.
think-
on
Yeah,
that.
so
yeah.
there's been several Dominicans.
Okay.
But let's see.
Yeah, God loves the Dominicans, so they don't even count in this race. We're just way ahead.
Yeah, see. Wikipedia has a popes by religious order tag. So there's been several, but because there's a lot of like random religious orders.
God bless autistic Catholics editing Wikipedia.
There's been a bunch of friends. There's been 6 Franciscans. It looks like. There's been like 16 Benedictines.
I am correct. I stand corrected.
But yes, first Augustinian.
First Augustinian, okay.
Yeah,
After the first Jesuit, right? Have we ever
after the first
had-
Jesuit? Yes.
Okay, we've never had any other Jesuit. So first Jesuit, followed by first Augustinian. Interesting times. as
Yeah,
well.
we've had Benedictines, we had Dominicans, we had Franciscans, and then there's these orders that I've had not let's see, Theatine popes. We've had a Theatine pope, Paul IV.
Who the fuck is
what
the fuck is a Theatine?
Cistercian popes, Benedict
Oh,
XII and
we've
Eugene
had
III.
the Cistercian?
There's Benedict XII in the 1300s.
How
and
do they
and Eugene III in the 1100s.
don't the Cistercians have a vow of silence? How do they square that? Well, whatever.
I'm trusting Wikipedia on this, which may be a mistake. But yeah, okay. So, but definitely the first Augustinian.
Okay, first Augustinian, which is also I think the Augustinians have a special reverence for Leo the Great. I forget if he's Leo the First or the Second, the one who talked to Attila the Hun.
Yeah.
Because Augustine had a special reverence for him. Not the founder, I think, of their order, but who their order was based upon. I don't think Augustine actually did found any order, though he did live monastically with a couple of friends and other clergy.
Mm.
So probably because of Leo the 13th and Leo the Great, he has a special reverence for him, which is useful. Which probably means, again, Leo the Great is famous for, if you read especially City of God, Attila the Hun didn't kill anyone who was in churches. It's like in the first 2 chapters. It's something that Augustine is in great pains to explain, that even the pagans ran to the churches because their churches were safe, and they refused to kill or slaughter or rape or steal anyone who was there.
Yeah.
So
no,
maybe
I
there's a
just-
special reverence for peace as well in these times. So there's a double meaning there.
I just finished listening to the History of Rome podcast like 2 days ago, and yeah, so anyone that hasn't checked it out, go ahead and check it out. But one of the really interesting things about it was seeing the development of the role that churches and Christians played in the late Roman Empire. Fascinating stuff. Just anyone listening, go anything post third century Roman history and the church, incredible stuff. Maybe talk about Pope Leo. One of Pope Leo's talking to Attila. Fantastic. I think it was who was it? Hold on. Saint Anscombe? No.
Saint Anscombe.
No. Who am I
unfortunately
thinking?
Not yet.
No. Who am I? No.
Anselm?
No. Had an A in it. Hold on.
Several
Look it up
Saint
real quick.
Anselms, I think, but most famously the one from Canterbury.
Bishop of Milan. Ambrose. That's what I'm thinking of.
Ambrose, yes,
Ambrose.
of course.
Dude,
but
hearing stories about St.
Tudor.
Ambrose just staring down the empresses. About I don't know if everyone knows the story, but the empress at the time was an Arian Christian, and they were in Milan. And despite her pleads and begging, he would not let a single Arian church stand or exist in Milan. Like, see, at one point, she ordered the Praetorian Guards to go and seize the church and turn it into an Arian church, and he wired up the crowds to fight the guards and kick them out of the church.
people forget, but even
Incredible.
like Constantine the Great, who is he a saint? Is Constantine
don't-
the saint? I
don't
forget. It makes
think
sense
so.
that he would be, but he was probably, from what we know, an Arian.
Yeah.
Like, probably. So it's very much like Arianism was sort of a high class religion because it has some pagan elements to it, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it. And again, Augustine, ex-speechwriter for the emperor, is at great pains to say, no, you're all fucking wrong. And City of God, lest everyone forget, was originally written as a letter to a pagan, and then it became like 25 books. There are several points where he's sort of, it's not sarcastic, I suppose. I don't know how Augustine meant it originally, but there's some points where he's like, if any good fit, where he's like making an argument and like about something, and he just sort of gives up because he's like, look, if any good faith reader has read like the 19 last books before this one, you just know I'm right. Like, I've already made this fucking argument before. You just fucking know it. Like, I'm not gonna
Awesome.
bother repeating it. It's really funny. The part where he talks about I posted this on the Discord, the part, because I'm listening to like the 1899 or the 1889 translation, one of the first English translations really of City of God, which is shocking how long it took to translate to English. But it's so funny because there is a part where he's talking about one, the Garden of Eden, and two, sex, and there is a part where he's basically talking about sex before the fall and sex after the fall, and lust, and so on, those sins. And there's a part where there are 3 straight minutes of Latin, which the translators didn't put into English, and you can hear the words semen and vagina like 5 times, and it's really funny. And because my native language is Portuguese, I could understand about half of it. It is really funny, dude. The fact that I can only understand like 40% of it makes it even funnier. Like, I was taking a walk while I was listening to it, and I was laughing. The moment he switched to Latin and I heard the word semen, I started laughing my semen, or however the translator pronounced it, like affecting a Latin accent. I started laughing my ass off. It was
Honestly,
great.
like, censoring the text by just not translating parts of it, pretty based. Just leave it in the Latin if you don't.
Yeah, like,
couldn't
if
be
you know,
asked to
you
translate
know.
it.
If you don't know, you don't know. Yeah, it's
You probably don't need to
simple
know.
as
It's
that.
okay.
Yeah, no, it's the original Augustine. I'm not like altering anything. I'm not censoring it. It's just there. I'm just not translating it. Which is kind of better than censoring it in a way. It's better to just, I'm not gonna translate this a little bit too crude, but if you can read the Latin, here it is.
We'll include it. So,
Yeah.
note what we were talking about earlier. It looks like Constantine was not canonized. His mother has been canonized. Saint Helena.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Another
Well-
mom canonized like Saint Monica for Saint. To be fair, if you've read the Confession, Saint Monica is like 100% deserves to be canonized.
Yes.
Because holy shit, dude.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, we've gone past the hour. Anyone have any final thoughts or comments before we go into plugs and get out of here?
Oh yeah, nothing happens. That's my final thought.
Yeah.
There will be no boots
That's
on the ground in Iran.
Yeah,
There
it
will
seems nothing
be
ever
no
happens.
regime change. In fact, every 2 years or so, Israel fires missiles at Iran. Iran pretends to reciprocate by firing missiles that they know will hit like 5 people on a farmstead somewhere. Out of 5 fucking 100 missiles. So and Leo the 14th seems pretty good. Quite like him. Aside from that,
Yeah,
those are
nothing
my
ever
final things.
happens is what the fans of Mariton's corner says. Nothing ever happens. Just never happens.
We will make another
They said
episode
that
at
for a
some
long
point this
time.
year, maybe.
Yeah, at some point this year, there will be an dude, I'm so like, I'm at the point where I'm just like going to summarize the last 13 pages of that chapter so we can move on to the next, do a solo podcast. We're just like, yeah, this happens, he says this. Okay, next chapter, finally interesting stuff. Augustine. I think he's talking about Augustinian mystery. The next chapter is like, yeah, we'll just do that. Yeah, it's fine. You
Sounds
get it.
good. I think something happening, including SB Bus, is basically like the new Iran's going to get nukes. Like it's going to happen in 2 years. It's going to happen it's going to happen like in just for like 30 years.
Oh
like
my
it's
God,
something's
yeah,
going to happen sometime eventually, and
since
it
I
never
was like,
does.
like 15 years. For 15 years of my life, people
Something
have been
was about to
saying
happen. No, it
Iran
never
is
does.
going to get nukes, and yet, maybe it's because Israel always sends a missile there or something, and yet there's no nuclear explosion. Weird. I don't know. Interesting. There's no radiation. I don't know. No one seems to be like, whoa, stay away from here. There's been a nuclear explosion. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive. Maybe there's secret nuclear bunkers that they definitely know how to make nukes with. But, maybe not.
Well, any plugs? Behind Boats, any plugs you guys want to give? Where people find you at? That kind of stuff. Most people you follow the show know where to find you guys.
I don't do anything anymore. My online footprint has vanished. At some point, I'll write again, but it's for your website. At some point, I'll podcast again, but it's for your show. So no, I'm out there. I'm at Eincath. I don't post. I don't do things. I don't happen.
Same here. I might write a chapter right now, like on miracles, but I will try to summarize the last 13 pages of Marathon just so we can get to the next chapter. But Anscombe's on miracles is fairly easy to summarize because she's pretty derogatory towards Hume in a funny way, and also makes pretty strict arguments towards it. So that would be a fun chapter to summarize because I don't have anything of my own to say that would be new because every argument I find that is, oh, this is original to me, I find someone else 50 years ago at least made it better, if not 1,000 years ago, if not 2,000, if not 2,500 of Aristotle and Plato. So
what's that quote from C.S. Lewis and Narnia? It's all in Plato. It's all in Plato.
Yeah, it's all there, man. It's sort of useless to meditate on politics if you've never read like all of Plato and really thought about it. You're sort of just a chump. I don't care what you have to say, which is why Henry Kissinger is the greatest diplomat of all time and definitely in heaven, by the way. Wrote a thesis in, I think, Oswald Spengler, Plato, and Kant was his doctoral thesis on the theory of history. Interesting man.
That actually does sound interesting.
It is available on LibGen and Nana's archive. I haven't read it, but it's there. You can find it.
I'm gonna have to look that up later.
It's like 300 pages. It's a pretty fucking long thesis. He didn't how do you say it in English? He didn't phone it in. Yeah, that's the expression. He definitely did his homework, which is weird. Like, it's weird seeing a Jewish guy in like working for the government but in his like graduation, referencing Oswald Spengler as a respectable historian of history in like the late 50s or the early 50s, whenever he did his doctorate. It's somewhat weird because that would be mostly discredited now. But he's like, no, I'm putting him up with Kant and like Plato. Or whatever the third one was. It's very interesting where he's comparing the theories of history. At least the idea is interesting to me. I haven't read it. I can't say if it's interesting or well written. I've read a bit of Diplomacy, and that's well written, at least.
Okay, well, everyone, thanks for listening. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Next week will be a break because I'm going to a wedding. After that, Kata will be coming on, so we can talk about some Byung-Chul Han. Jeremy's coming back on, talk some philosophy. And then come August, Akana will be done getting married, and we will be able to go back to doing the Chester Belloc Hour. As for that, everyone, thanks for listening. Let people know about the Servile AIDS podcast. Have a good night.